I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
After deliberating in Dedham over 5 days, a mistrial in the case against Karen Reed.
We will not stop fighting. We have no quit.
Reed is the college professor accused of killing her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, hitting him with her SUV after a night of drinking.
Free Karen Reed! Free Karen Reed!
She claims she's being framed in a massive police cover-up and that O'Keefe was fatally beaten inside a fellow officer's home. It's a case that has divided a community.
We believe there's a path for justice for John O'Keefe.
The jury of 6 men and 6 women visited the crime scene and heard testimony from 74 witnesses during the 9-week trial.
And all of a sudden, Karen said, there he is, there he is. Let me the F out of this car. And she started kicking the door.
I hit him, I hit him.
She repeated, I hit him.
And then she was saying, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And then she proceeded to say that she had a cracked taillight.
With no video or eyewitnesses, the first trial turned into a battle of the experts.
The vehicle traveled up to 24 miles per hour and approximately 62 feet.
What, if anything, occurred then?
The right rear of the Lexus struck the pedestrian, John O'Keefe.
That does not look to me at all remotely like an impact from a motor vehicle.
We found a Google search that happened. First of all, the search was how long to die in cold, and it happened at or before 2:27 a.m.
I'm of no doubt that the only time those 2 searches were conducted was at 6:23 and 6:24 on the morning of the 29th.
The defense also raised questions about the police investigation.
Had you ever used a leaf blower in a crime scene preservation effort?
First time.
Not once did you mention that this video is actually completely inverted.
I did not know.
Lead investigator Trooper Michael Proctor also came under fire.
She's a whack job. No ass.
Now, Reed faces a new jury, and new special prosecutor Hank Brennan plans to introduce new evidence, including molds made of Chloe's mouth. Chloe is the German Shepherd owned by the Albert family during the night in question.
Those wounds were inflicted by a dog attack.
But they actually got rid of the dog altogether.
Do you know that Chloe exists, that we provided notice to you, that we went up and saw Chloe and took molds?
New evidence could also include new testing of the SUV's telemetric system, new video of Brian Higgins at Canton PD, and Reed's prior interviews, including with ABC News.
It's snowing. John has no coat on. It's windy. So I drop him off. He goes up the driveway and approaches the side door.
The changes might signal a different defense, and possibly the defendant taking the stand.
And you also mentioned to the media that there are some things that you wish that you could clarify. Is there any
They'll be clarified one day, Matt. They'll be clarified. It might not be live, but it will be.
We're on the record bringing you the biggest moments from the Karen Reed murder retrial. I'm your host, Cody Thomas, and today we're diving into week 3, where evidence got colder, but the courtroom heat kicked up a notch. This week, forensic analysis, first responder testimony, digital footprints, and questions about law enforcement integrity all collided in the courtroom. Let's jump right into day 9. Ryan Nagel and Heather Maxson, who were at the Alberts' home to pick up Nagel's sister, testified that they saw a woman in a black SUV outside the Albert home. Maxson recalled seeing a man in the passenger seat briefly, but by the time they drove away, only the woman remained. The jury also heard from Sarah Levinson, an Albert party guest, who confirmed she left with the McCabe's at around 1:30 a.m. and saw no sign of O'Keefe in the yard. EMT Katie McLaughlin recounted her brief but disturbing interaction with Karen Reed. She testified that Reed kept repeating, I hit him, when first responders arrived. Retired Canton Police Lieutenant Paul Gallagher detailed how investigators used a leaf blower to uncover blood and broken glass buried beneath the snow, raising eyebrows and questions about protocol. A broken cocktail glass was found nearby and red Solo cups were used to collect samples. Witnesses placed Reed at the scene and conflicting accounts of the night at 34 Fairview Road continued to mount. Here's more from day 9.
Good Samaritan uses serum or plasma testing as opposed to whole blood testing.
I'm not familiar with their specific technique or methodology. I haven't undergone training for their methods, but it is my understanding that the type of sample used for their method is serum or plasma.
Would somebody's age be a factor in determining the amount of water in their blood?
I don't know.
Could somebody's gender affect the amount of water in their blood?
Yes.
When your sister went back up the driveway to go in the house, when was the next point you had any chance to see the SUV?
When we were passing it.
When you were passing the SUV, where was it located in relation to the house, flagpole?
Directly in front of the house, like a car length from that.
A car length from the flagpole?
Yes, give or take. There was a woman in the driver's seat of the black SUV in front of me, sitting there with their hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2.
How did you see them inside the car?
Their dome light was on.
As you were parked at the driveway the entire time, that generally 5-minute time, did you ever see anybody get out of the SUV and walk down the street towards the driveway?
I'll allow it.
No, I did not, sir.
Did you ever see any person other than your sister outside of those vehicles the entire time that you were at Fairview?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, I did not, sir.
And she looked like she was alone?
Yes.
You didn't see anybody else in the SUV?
No, I did not, sir.
You certainly didn't see a 6'1" man in the SUV in the passenger seat, correct?
Correct, sir.
In fact, you saw that the passenger seat was empty.
Correct.
At some point, did you see the patient?
Yes.
Was it a he or she?
It was a man. He was lying supine on the side of the road. He asked me to try to gather more information and kind of see what happened and what's going on. There was a woman who seemed to be really concerned and involved with the patient's status, and so I just kind of assumed that this would be the person that I could try to get more information from. I asked if there had been any significant trauma that happened that preceded this, and she answered with a series of statements that she repeated. I hit him. I hit him. There was a woman next to us who told her to calm down, stop talking, calm down, you're hysterical. So she repeated, I hit him, and a police officer asked her, said, you what? And she repeated it again, I hit him.
After Ms. McCabe interjected and the defendant made those statements about hitting him, did you persist in getting more information, asking to clarify what she meant by I hit him?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I felt at that point, given the situation and how disturbing, and it was a very emotional situation, the woman was very upset. I didn't feel comfortable pushing and asking for more. I just didn't think that it was the right time for that, and it was also really not my place at that point, and I feel like that was something that the police that's more their role.
On day 10, Lieutenant Paul Gallagher returned for cross-examination, where he admitted he only learned later that his friend Brian Higgins had been at the Albert House that night. He was also questioned about his failure to collect potential video evidence from a nearby security camera. Weather meteorologist Robert Gilman confirmed it was a frigid, snowy night with reduced visibility and temperatures plunging. Critical context for the timeline of events. Trooper Nicholas Guarino was recalled and brought a barrage of Karen Reed's voicemail messages, over 50 calls to John O'Keefe, many laced with profanity. The final voicemail recorded during the discovery of O'Keefe's body captured the panic and chaos. Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara of the State Police CERT team testified next. His team recovered 6 taillight fragments and O'Keefe's sneaker filled with snow near the curb of 34 Fairview Road.
Is the reason that you didn't seek a search warrant or separate the witnesses or ask any of the potential witnesses to join you down at the station, did that have anything to do with your knowledge that the homeowner was a police officer?
Absolutely none. I've actually executed warrants on police officers' houses in the past, including police officers I personally worked with and had to charge some of their children. So that absolutely would not factor into a reason.
You contacted your deputy chief, Deputy Chief Kelleher, and ultimately secured some solo cups from Deputy Chief Kelleher across the street, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
You were aware at the time that Deputy Chief Kelleher's house was adorned with a Ring video camera just over the front door facing out toward the street and facing across the street, which would be facing 34 Fairview, correct?
That is incorrect. He does not have a Ring camera. I know that his system is an Arlo camera.
Did you seek the footage?
No, I didn't. I know what that camera captures.
Okay. Did Deputy Chief Kelleher get any special treatment from you because he's a police officer?
No.
Did Deputy Chief Kelleher get any special treatment from you because he was your boss?
No, absolutely not.
And during that time frame, was there a significant storm forecast for that time period?
Oh, yes. The first couple of days was dry and very cold to bitterly cold. As we got closer to the 28th and 29th, we were looking at a storm coming in from the west and strengthening along the mid-Atlantic coastline.
How much snow accumulated on the 28th before turning the page to the 29th?
Very little. Enough to track a cat.
About how much snow had accumulated at that point? Around 6 p.m. or so.
Around 6 p.m.?
Yes.
22.5 inches.
So that's 22 and a half inches, just short of 22, excuse me, just short of 22 and a half inches by 6 p.m. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what was the total snow accumulation from the storm in its entirety again?
23.8 inches.
Okay, so just short of 2 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what impact would that have on the hardness of the ground over that time period?
Well, again, the ground was frozen. The soil was frozen, and the surface of the ground was frozen. And it would have made the ground impenetrable.
Trooper Garino, did you have an opportunity to obtain phone calls, voice messages, and text messages from the defendant to Mr. O'Keefe's phone on the evening of January 29th, 2022?
Yes, I was.
And again, can you give us the time of the connection between the defendant's phone and Mr. O'Keefe's router at Meadows Ave that night?
Yes, 12:36:39 a.m. At 12:36:40 a.m., the defendant calls John. It's not answered. At 12:37:08 a.m., the defendant calls John, and voicemail number 1 is left. See you later at 12:55:50 a.m. on the 29th. 12:59:24 a.m., the defendant calls John. Voicemail number 3 is left.
John, I'm here with your kids. Nobody knows what the you want, you pervert.
Day 11 began with Trooper Connor Keefe testifying about the collection of physical and digital evidence. But it was his connection to disgraced lead investigator Michael Proctor that took center stage. Proctor, a now former Massachusetts state trooper who was recently fired for misconduct, now looms over the case like a shadow. The day ended with Jessica Hyde, a digital forensics expert, who focused on the timing of a crucial search by Jennifer McCabe. She testified that the search term "How long to die in the cold" was entered at 6:24 a.m. on a browser tab that had been opened at 2:27 a.m. This supported the prosecution's timeline. The search occurred after John O'Keefe's body was found.
What was your role, limited role that night?
To process any evidence that was discovered during the search.
Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
Is that one of the items you bagged that night?
Yes.
On October 21 of 2022, you and Michael Proctor interviewed Sarah Levinson together, correct?
No, I don't recall that.
Having reviewed that report, does that refresh your memory as to whether or not you participated in an interview of Sarah Levinson with Michael Proctor on October 21st of 2022?
Yes, I don't recall the specifics, but...
So when you say yes, is it your current testimony that your memory is refreshed that you were actually there?
Yes.
The two of you would have participated in that interview together, correct?
Yes.
But you did not write the report, correct?
No, I did not.
Were you asked by the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office to look at and analyze a phone that was related to a person by the name of Jennifer McCabe?
Yes, with a very, very specific scope to a specific date range.
Were you asked during that scope and date range to analyze it and provide an opinion about whether there were any user-initiated deletions of any web searches or Safari-type searches?
Yes, I was asked to look for deletions of Safari searches within the scope of the time frame that was dictated by the purpose of the exam.
Were you asked to look at the phone device and determine whether or not there were any user-initiated deletions of phone calls on the device?
Yes, I was asked to look for deletions of phone calls in that same date range.
I mentioned, or I asked you about using multiple tools and whether or not the use of different tools changes the actual underlying data.
So the actual underlying data is always maintained, and we do validate that. And all of the tools I use in this instance are tools that do not change the underlying data. An examiner who has not dug into the artifact and tested to see what it means may assume erroneously that 227 timestamp is the time that what is there is searched. The search in that field of that artifact is going to always be the most recent search in the tab, but that timestamp actually means either the time that tab was backgrounded or, if it's the first time the tab's been opened, when it was opened. So you could erroneously implicate a search was done hours or some time period or even days before it actually occurred. Some of us leave our tabs open forever.
And in this case, this phone, was it on non-private or private?
So specifically the two searches we're talking about, how long to die in cold and how long to die in CIKLD, excuse my differentiation there. Both of those searches were done in non-private browsing.
Was there any applications on to mask those searches?
Not to the best of my knowledge. I did not see any.
You shared that you have an opinion about whether that timestamp 22740 was, whether or not that was the time the search "how long to die in the cold" occurred. Can you tell us, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, your opinion about whether that search, "how long to die in the cold," occurred at 2:27:40 a.m. on January 29th, 2022?
Same objection, Your Honor. Okay, the objections are overruled.
What I can state to a scientific degree of certainty is that search occurred at 6:24 a.m. and was the last search in the tab that had been opened at 2:27. Just ensuring that I have the question correct.
Please.
You're asking if what else occurred in that tab prior?
Yes.
That I cannot say with a clear degree of certainty.
come to an opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty whether any user deleted the phrase, "How's long to die in cold"?
Yes.
And what is your opinion?
My opinion is there was no deletion that occurred by the user because it is not something a user can delete.
Sergeant Yuri Buchanan of the Massachusetts State Police testified on day 12. He discussed the crime scene, case evidence, and the investigation into John O'Keefe's death. He also presented a lot of evidence, including O'Keefe's wet clothes from that fatal night. On cross, defense attorney Alan Jackson zeroed in on who really led the investigation into John O'Keefe's death. Buchanan said Trooper Michael Proctor was just a, quote, case officer. But Jackson showed Proctor's name was on nearly every warrant, search, and evidence log. The defense pointed out key missteps. The house wasn't searched, a crime scene log wasn't created, and O'Keefe's clothing sat unsecured for days. Buchanan insisted the case was handled with honor, but admitted he didn't know who bagged critical evidence and that major reports weren't filed for over a year.
On the day or the morning of January 29, 2022, do you know who was assigned to take calls for new cases?
Yes, before 7 a.m. on the 29th, it was Michael Proctor that was assigned to be on call. We were shown a broken cocktail glass, bottom of a broken cocktail glass. We were provided Mr. John O'Keefe's cell phone, and I was also shown a brown paper bag with 6 plastic Solo cups in it, containing a what was reported to be blood in the snow. We had statements made by the defendant that she was questioning whether she had hit him, and to that extent.
Had you focused in on a target at this point or reached any conclusions about your investigation?
No.
Had he passed at that time?
Yes, he has. When I walked into the room, I saw a medical bed in front of me. Mr. O'Keefe was covered with a sheet. There was a pile of clothing to the left, at his feet to the left of the bed. I observed several injuries on him once I lifted the sheet, and those were documented with photographs. I saw pooling of blood underneath his head. There was seepage of blood into the sheets. There was also swelling, discoloration, a large amount of blood pooling underneath his eyelids. There was also a tiny cut, laceration to the eyelid area.
You're pointing to your right eye. Could you be specific, please?
Also on the left nostril, there was a very small laceration there. Both were not actively bleeding. There were a series of cuts and bruises to the right arm, which extended from approximately mid forearm up to the mid tricep area. There was also a bruise on that same arm on the back of the hand. It was light in color. It wasn't a profound discoloration as the eyes appeared to me. There were also injuries to abrasion or cut scrapes to the knee, I believe.
Which knee?
The right knee.
Let me just ask you this. Do you believe that Michael Proctor, his involvement in this case, taints the investigation? Tainted the investigation?
No.
Not at all?
The investigation was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction only.
And did you state to them that there was a possibility that the decedent, John O'Keefe, was struck in the face with a cocktail glass?
I don't recall my words exactly, but that sounds accurate to what I might have said.
What steps did you take to at that moment to determine whether or not anybody in the house could have been involved in that possible physical altercation that you just described?
We interviewed the homeowner and 2 witnesses that were in that house.
With each day, the trial becomes a battleground of timelines, technology, and trust. From evidence found beneath the snow to angry voicemails and the digital search history that could shift everything, this case is as much about what happened as it is about who to believe. As the testimony deepens, so do the questions. Was this a tragic accident or something more sinister? Stay with us. The story is far from over. I'm Cody Thomas, and as always, thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay informed, and we'll see you next time we go back on the record.